Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to see how to make the hard industrial techno of Vieze Asbak. This tutorial was heavily inspired by this track Hardcore Power, since it was requested a lot in the comments, but I also used other tracks. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, commenting the video if you like this kind of content. And as usual, if you want to follow along with the Ableton project file, you can get it in the description of the video. Alright, here we go.
Give me firepower.
Alright, so we're gonna start with the kick, and I think for the hard industrial techno tracks, it's always the same. The kick is like the main element to be put forward, and if you've done your heavy kick, I think you've done already like 80% of the track. And really here in the hardcore power track of Vieze Asbak, I think what he wanted to do is having like a psytrance kick and kind of a mild part in his track, to then have a contrast with the heavy kick so that it surprises the audience. So I'm gonna first dive into the hard industrial kick. So this one was made out of two main layers, but there are several layers, of course, inside of them. Of course, the group processing is the most important thing because you add lots of saturation, and without it, it's very weak. So the way I'm gonna present this kick is by keeping this saturation on the bus group, because otherwise it would add no sense. And when I did it, I added this saturation and I went back into the layers to kind of manage the volume, the frequency balance, and so on. So it's hard to exactly reproduce how I did this chronologically. I'm just gonna show you the principles that I use to make this kick. So first principle is having punch layer and having a rumble layer. The rumble is gonna be in the offbeat, so as an answer from the punch. And of course, you're gonna have lots of saturation. So let me show you the whole kick without saturation and with the saturation. So this is with the group effect and without it. Here, really huge importance on this big saturation. You see I have 16 dBs, but I manage also the volume after so that it doesn't go in the red. There's a few EQs just to withdraw some resonancy, as you can see. A bit of dynamic EQ here, just for the punch. So I kind of manually put the punch, a bit of EQ here in the highs. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the group processing, so very important. But inside I have lots of layers. So this is my punch, and to do this punch I've used 5 layers. The main layer is the kick, so really it's to give the sub and the punch. So this is just a vengeance kick, but I've withdrawn the transient because I'm gonna have so much transient with all of these layers that it's better to withdraw it because it will clash and it will be too much. So here's just for the sub, for the body of the kick. And here just some EQs because I had too much lows, and I wanted also to have this dip because of the saturation here. Sometimes it's gonna give me too much resonancy without this dip. So next I have 4 layers, and all of these layers are really like some perks, but what I do on them is adding lots of distortion. So you see I have this pedal. So without it, it's just a random perk. You can take any perk. And what you have to do is also pitch it down, because it's going to create a pitch envelope and you're going to create also a body. And you put lots of distortion. So here I use the pedal. I have something that's very, very compressed, and that's actually what gives me for this kick something heavily compressed, you see. Like really, here it's heavy distortion. So I have first this perk, and I'm creating a little pitch envelope here manually. And this one was very for the high end because I'm gonna have lots of mids punch with the other perks. So this is the other one. Again, I'm doing a pitch envelope to do this. So at first it's just a perk that's already distorted. And this one is also quite a high layer. So you see really the importance of the pitch envelope. Really gives this movement, and with the punch together. And now I miss the mids really on the transient and the first part of the body. So I'm using two, it's also some perks, but that I've distorted, and this really gives me this kind of snare. So I'm using the same technique as I did for the Hades tutorial and for other tutorials also. So again, I'm pitching down the original sample without the effect. This was a perk. So you can hear some reverb because I have the reverb on the group. You see it. It's really a perk. So you can take any perk and have fun with it and try different perks to see what fits better. But already, if I put the pitch down, I'm creating this first pitch envelope. It's almost a snare, and if I distort it a lot, I get this. And here I EQ just to create a resonancy here for my punch, and also I don't want to clash with the body of the kick, so that's why I EQ heavily with the high pass. So this is one of the layer, and there's the second one, and I think it's the same thing. It's just that I pitch down. It might be another one. It might be exactly the same actually. And I do the same kind of processing. It's just that I balance everything. So I think I had too much in the transient and was lacking a bit of punch in the body. So that's why I added this one. So really here it's kind of hard to explain, but you gotta match the volume right to have really a balance between all of these layers. You gotta use your ears, and you gotta try, really experiment the different volume and parameters to see what fits better. And together with the rumble, you have this. But if I had this, so it's now it's a hard industrial kick. But if I want the Vieze Asbak effect, I would need another reverb. So I have my dry signal here, and if I add this other signal with a reverb, so it's 100% because here I'm using parallel processing. I'm sidechaining to let the punch go through with the dry layer. And this is just a layer of reverb for the offbeat. And it kind of fill up the high end in the offbeat. This is really the low end, and you have the high end with the reverb. And so together. And yeah. That's it for the punch layer. And for the tail, I'm using 3 different rumbles. So I have more of a high rumble, a low rumble, and a mid rumble. So really it creates something very full. So you can see here, I have almost all the frequencies. And basically for this kind of kick, you cannot take the whole space of the frequency spectrum. So it's really, you have the kick and sometimes 1 or 2 elements, but not so much because the kick is already taking all the space. So here, to do this kind of crunchy layer, the best technique that I use often is using impacts. So at first you see it was this impact. So you can already use this as a rumble. But if I want some crunch and some heavy distortion, I'm using the fuzz mode of the pedal with a huge gain. You see, you get all of these frequencies. Then I have this rumble low. So I think this one is one of my previous tutorial. I use one of these rumbles. So it's really just a very low rumble. And this one is more in the mids. And it's more reverby. And to do this, I just took this kick. I've put convolution reverb 100%, the amp with 100% bass mode or heavy mode or whatever. You record this, you put it in audio, and you get this kind of rumble. And then you can play with the tails to create different effects. So you see this one is coming here, this one is a bit later, and this one is starting here. So you can play with the different tastes to create different vibes. You see already it's a different movement. And it could work depending on your punch, so you gotta try. Again, it's really having a balance of all the frequencies And together with the kick, you gotta EQ everything so that it matches and you get your kick very full and covering all the frequency space. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this kick. Again, for the grit of the rumble, here I can show you, you can use any kind of impact and you can get really crunchy sounds and different tones and timbres. You can pitch it down and get some really nasty stuff. So already could have added this one, you see. So really it's a good tool, but then you gotta be careful because there's lots of frequencies, so you gotta balance everything so that it's working together with the patch. So then quickly I have my Psy Kick. So for this one, I'm using these layers. So I'm using a basic kick. This one is from KSHMR. So just a classic Psy Kick, no processing. Then I just add a bit of room. I use an impact here to bring a room. Then I have the psybass, that it's of course sidechained. For this one, I'm using one of the psybass from my sample pack. And I used this because I pitch it up to be in the key of my track, which is the kick here in G sharp. And I'm just adding last layer again with some psybass from my sample pack. Here it's to give a bit more drive, kind of a Perc feeling. That's very mild, but together, this is my kick. I don't even have group processing on this one, but it works well, and that's it. Okay, so now we have all of the other elements. So just before I begin with the other elements, I will explain quickly the arrangement of the track. So you gotta start first with the heavy kick here, but with a high pass. So I'm using the same arrangement as the hardcore power track. So here, this one with the high pass is like telling the audience, okay, this thing is gonna be heavy. But then you got a little part with the Psy Kick. Also telling something is going to be heavy because I already bring the Screech that is going to come in the second part. I have also some mild drums. So here it's really doing something a bit cheesy, like, okay, this is some psytrance, this is a bit mild. And then boom, you build the tension with the vocal. So with a phrase that repeats itself. I also create movement with this auto filter. So bring in the phrase, full phrase, then repeats itself with the filter that's going down, then full phrase, then boom, drop. Before the drop, also bring the Perc, and then boom, Perc plus the kick. Then you got a bit of this whole part with the heavy kick, with a few elements coming, some drums, some hi-hats, the Lazer, and then boom, you got a breakdown. Again, new cheesy part, but with a melody this time. And then you bring back the heavy kick, but this time with a longer screech and something that's very intense. Like this, and then bring back the other elements together to finish the track. And some other screeches. So actually, I start with a drop with only one screech, but then I got a screech with some call and answers for the second part. So it's an interesting variation that you can do. This one also. I also have lots of effects here. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the arrangement. So if you want to go in the first main big element, so this is this Perc that is playing along with the kick. And to do this Perc, I've used 3 layers to have something very full. So I've used a hi-hat first. So of course I'm using the arpeggiator just to play the note quickly. Here it's to add a bit of noise. So it's really to have also some transient, but it's getting the sound to be fuller because with noise you cover lots of frequency space. So I'm just using a hat with some overdrives. I had the same reverb that I have on all the elements, and then just high pass because I don't want to clash with the kick that's already very full in this frequency range. Then most of the sound is done by this Perc. So I'm using a cowbell that I distort quite a lot to create some harmonics and to get more evil feeling with it. So what's important in the perc that you're using is that you must have a resonancy. So basically, here you see I have resonancy, and this is actually harmonics. And here I make sure that it's transposed down because I want the same key of my kick or something in the scale of my kick. So that's why I've pitched it down. And then I'm using another cowbell, but this time to have the high end and also bringing even more harmonics. And together it's glued, also a bit of reverb and delay, saturation. Again, to bring even more noise and even more nasty. Then I have this sidechain, very important because here I don't want to clash with the punch of my kick. So I have this first sidechain, which is only for the bass or low mids. So that's everything is sidechain here. But then I have another sidechain just for the high end. But I do it carefully because I still want some sound to be heard in the high end. And so here I'm playing this pattern all the way with the kick. But after you get some other elements coming. So you see on the group, I also have lots of EQs because since I'm doing saturation, I have some resonances. So as usual, lots of resonances around 4K and also some specific resonances here that I have to find. Also, I'm using an OTT, which is a good tool to make the sound a bit more rich and wider. And here the space is really done also by this big reverb. I have also some higher resonances here. So again, using your ears, spending some time to find the resonances, try to make it the cleanest possible. And yeah, that's it for this perc. So after this perc, I have the perc and the drums. First, I have this open hat. So here I used specifically noise, kind of noisy open hat. So you gotta choose it carefully. And I've used something, I use this to make it sharp. And also I'm using the overdrive to bring more noise. So this is this open hat. The second part, I use this open hat with other hats to create something more dynamic. So I'm just using two other hats with the same processing, just withdrawing this resonancy. And yeah, kind of add something to the pattern. And that's pretty much it. My sidechain here. For the open hat, so this one is pretty mild. I've used it only with the sidechain kick. Something very airy. So for having this kind of bass, I'm using this open hat like this and this hi-hat, basic hi-hat with a bit of pattern here. So just two different hi-hats, but I'm using the vocoder to create the noisy effect. You see, really important, bringing even more noise. Actually, should have high pass like this. And there is the auto pan also to make it move and have something very hairy. So that's pretty much it for this hi-hat. Then I have this laser thing. So already using a laser sample, but I have also use the pitch envelope. So basically you can make a laser from any kind of sample. So let me show you. If I take a perc like this, and I'm using here the pitch envelope. You see you can make a laser if you go up, and then you put an amp, then a reverb, and there you go, you have your laser. Can make a kick also out of it. So here I'm using a laser sample, but I've also added a pitch envelope like this. See, without it, so I'm changing the tone with it. I'm using the same pattern as the other one here with the arpeggiator and just saturating reverb, delay, drum bus to manage the transients. So it kind of tames the high end. I have my OTT also. make it more wide with more room. And I have my same sidechain as the Perc. And here it's playing a color enhancer with the Perc. And it's wide thanks to the delay and the reverb, as you can hear. I'm using it also at the end. So then I have my melody. So here I think, so I'm using the same kind of pattern as Vieze Asbak, which is repeating the melody like this, then same melody but with a different pitch, and then kind of the release and answer of the pattern at the end. And to give this kind of birthday feeling, you gotta use Redux. So here it's a simple Pluck, but with the beat crusher you can get this effect. And so yeah, here just a random Perc that I like. Actually it's one of the presets that you got in Serum when you buy it. Bit of saturation also. To get more harmonics, and then just bringing some room with the reverb and with the delay. And so yeah, really the sound is made by the choice of the pattern and by the Redux. And to do this kind of a pattern, just really use the key of your track. So here I'm in G sharp, just playing the same notes and trying different patterns like this. You just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it with a different pitch, and then just try different notes here to make something that you feel gives the release feeling and emotion to your brain when you listen to it. And then just I'm playing with the auto filter here in the breakdown just to give some movement. Then I bring back the hi-hats, the psytrance kick, and then boom, I have my drop. And before the drop, I cut everything, but I just keep the release pattern from the melody, and then boom, you have your kick. So next we have the vocal. For the vocal, it's just about finding a phrase that's catchy and that fits the track. Also gives this nasty feeling. So I'm using an amp, delay, reverb to get the same room as the rest of the elements. But really this one was already processed and was fitting the track well. So then we have our Screech. So for the Screech, I'm using one of the patches that I did for my Screech video tutorial. You can get it actually for free, and this is the Screech 5. So this is just some detuned saw waves, 16 unison with some noise FM on it. Lots of distortion, delay, reverb, also compression and EQ. And it's very simple, but it works well because you have some saw wave. It's very wide, gets lots of reverb, you get the OTT and the sidechain, and you get something like this. So first pattern is very straightforward. And in another time, I bring this second Screech, but this time with quicker notes and with a kind of call and answer with the higher pitch here. And I also, this one as an answer with the higher pitch. This time my answer is the vocal that I bring back after these two screeches. And here I'm also using it at the end, more in the background here, but I bring back the Perc and the other drums and Lazer. So yeah, pretty straightforward for this Screech. And to finish, I have lots of effects. So if you listen to the Vieze Asbak track, you rarely have only the kick with nothing. So there's always something in the background to kind of give a room to the track. So in the first part, you got this kick, and I bring a bit of impact and noise just to accompany the thing. So I'm just using a bit at the end of each bar, impacts, a bit of sweep. And before my big drop, I have also this reverse sweep. So I'm using 3 different sweep to have something full. And it's really like pumping up and bringing that sensation before the kick, like this. To anticipate it. Also have this kick. with this other one. I'm gonna make a video on the hardcore hardstyle pre-drop fills and a few other sweeps here and there before my breakdown, before my other transition here, and it's really to make the audience anticipate the movement from the track and it's more smooth. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial, guys. Thank you very much for subscribing, liking, commenting, and I see you in the next one. Ciao, guys.